Dain, man, happy to have you here. You're a referral from Frank Montreux.
Correct.
Good friends. You became good friends with Jared Cott, who was on recently as well too.
That's right.
Man, thanks for coming on. We're excited to have you here and in person too.
Yeah, no, pleasure. I was pumped to come in and chat with you guys and get
Well,
into it.
Well, talk to us. You haven't been doing this for long, but you've had a lot of wins and you've had a lot of
L's. Losses.
Yeah. I was
That's what
trying
they
to.
are.
I was trying to find a. You've grinded it out. So
Absolutely.
talk to us about kind of how you just got. You're not from here.
No. So originally from San Diego, California. I get the question all the time, why did you even come out here?
Yeah, usually people go the opposite way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And actually, I came out here. I used to work corporate. Came out here 2019, got laid off. COVID happened. In 2019, I could not have told you guys what a settlement statement was. I had no idea what escrow was. But I found wholesaling on YouTube, which is like YouTube University. When people talk about like actually getting out there and learning it for yourself, that is the absolute best place.
But what made you stumble on? Like you were looking for something in real estate? Were you looking for just some sort of gig type
Yeah,
work?
what was the search?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, so I was applying for more corporate jobs, corporate sales jobs, and I was so poor I couldn't afford cable, so I'd watch YouTube with ads. And there was a YouTube ad by Clever Investor, I think, and he's like, "Oh, wholesaling this, wholesaling that," and I was in the early, 2010s in tech, so I was used to big paydays, and so when I saw this ad, like, "Oh yeah, I can make 30, 40, 50 grand," I was like, nah, this is a scam. This is a scam, 100%. And then I started doing some digging, and I was like, oh, like this might be real. And it was the first deal I got was on the South Side. I'd been doing it for 8 months without luck. Found it on Craigslist from another wholesaler who had posted it. The buyer went around our back to the seller to cut us out. And I think my spread went from like $18,000, and then the buyer gave me like a sympathy $3,000 after the deal had closed. And so that's when I knew. I was like, oh, this is real. Contract flipping is real. Wholesaling is real. You can build a business out of that.
Before we dig into it, do you still pay for YouTube commercials or to get away?
No, it's free. So I watch free YouTube.
Yeah.
It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep.
Well, so let's go back to. I didn't even know it was an option. You didn't have to pay for commercials on YouTube.
YouTube TV.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
There's their free plug.
Yeah, there you go.
We're sponsored by YouTube.
Yeah,
we made it.
Yeah, we made it. So you sat down, you found that video that night. Like, what were some of the kind of the smaller steps between there and getting railed by the seller?
Yeah, what happened before Craigslist? Like, did you send mailers out? Like, how did you actually get in the game?
I bought a course. So I was like, okay, this seems cool. You can make big money. I'd always been able to get jobs right away in corporate America. Didn't happen. I went 0 for 6.
So you were trying.
I was actually trying to go get like sales management roles, sales roles. I mean, at that point, the savings were dwindling. Rent was due.
What were you doing in tech? Like, what was your?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of like partnership management. So like I go out and negotiate deals with like Visa, Apple, MasterCard, and then tie it all into like food apps. So like Ritual, Uber Eats, things like that. And then at Uber, I did a lot of go-to market stuff. So I was an early employee at Uber, Uber Eats. We were in 4 cities. I scaled it up to 80 plus cities. I just would travel around the U.S. working with supply and demand, so restaurants and eaters, and then work out partnerships with more regional chains and built out sales teams. I got really, really good at it. And then I got poached over to a company called Ritual, and Ritual was ordering for office workers. So, hey, I'm going to go down to Starbucks. You could send out a notification to everybody in your office, and they could piggyback on your order, and that person would essentially be the runner. And so we were expanding into Southeast Asia. So I went and I was living in Hong Kong in 2019. That was a crazy time to be there. But yeah, it was negotiating with like MasterCard and Apple and trying to get all the partnerships so the payments went through. And
so you were in Hong Kong when everything with
the riots.
With riots. Wow. So you were there?
Yeah.
Like, were you running around the streets or were you like scanning your apartment?
No. Like running around the streets is the most peaceful. It's the most peaceful place to have a riot. They all dressed in black. They had their umbrellas. Carrie Lam was running the country. They had these 5 pillars for what they were asking for. And I remember I used to walk from like Central over to like, I forget the neighborhood, but I was like maybe a 2-mile walk every day. And I really felt like a local when I joined a swimming club there in Hong Kong. I'm like the only guilo is what they call us. Like the only guilo. I'm like jumping in the pool with my Speedo, like cruising with Hex to all of them at lunch. It was a good time. But yeah, no, it was wild. But that's kind of my tech background. It was like more, corporate sales.
So it sounds like though a lot of those skills that you're doing, without breaking it down, it's probably a lot of those skills you're using today and what you do now, putting complicated deals together. Like that's what you do.
Everything is transferable. Like, I started as a sales rep and I ended up doing partnerships, and there was management and a bunch of stuff in between. Okay. And all of that is translated into what it is.
I always like for people to realize like a lot of what they're doing now, and they want to be in real estate. A lot of things they have right now, the skill set is transferable one way or another. For the most part, there's a lot of things out there.
Yeah, and listen, it is a grind. I went and that was, when we got those unemployment checks. So I was never one to be on like the corporate or the federal tit. I was like against it at some point, and I was like, okay, I'm getting these checks, and that's how we started the company, is on these unemployment checks. And I just wait for whatever that 1,500 to come in, and I just reinvest it back into a system. We were eating peanut butter like saltines, like the Walgreens brand, with like the Walgreens peanut butter, just like putting it together and eating that, just so like we could put our money together for our next lists, right? To go buy our next list or to go buy our next piece of software. So it was really, really hard. And
so at what point you went at 6 job interviews, or you got denied at 6 jobs? Maybe you thought you're like, what was it just like, I'm only going 6? Like what made you kind of say, I'm done with that. I'm going to focus on this.
I got one, the 6th no was like a resounding no. I think it switched something on my mind. I was like, what? I can't depend on somebody else to cut my check and sign it. I need to go out here and make something happen, because I couldn't move back to San Diego, couldn't afford it. I had maybe like a month or 2 left in my savings account to pay rent. Man, my rent at that time was like, I don't know, $2,200 or something. So I was poor. And it was a serious leap of faith, and I got really lucky it worked. I didn't get lucky it worked out. It was a mixture of timing and preparation. All the 8 years I'd been in tech to get prepped, and then the timing of everything happening in the market. And it was, part of it was serendipitous. The other 95% was just like utter grit and getting after it and waking up early, cold calling. We used to pull vacant demo lists from the city of Chicago, wildly outdated, and a Google spreadsheet. And I would just print it out, skip trace it on True People Search, call them. And that's where I really sharpened my teeth, because those are the properties that have taxes, liens,
violations,
water. Like we got one property back one time. The water bill was $250,000. And I'm just like, how am I supposed to make something happen here? And yeah, it was like, it was 100 dials a day, and it was nonstop. I'd given up my apartment. I lived in the office, or in the basement of the office that we're in now. The guy who owns the building, big shout out to Alan. He rented out to me for $300. And then on the weekends, my buddy bought a house up in Powers Lake in Wisconsin, and I'd go and sleep there on the weekends. And yeah, it was like, just like quick side note, I had a California driver's license. It expired during COVID. The renewal address, because you could do it online, was wrong. So then I was like, 6 months later, I'm riding on a suspended license, and I'm like, where's my ID? And they're like, oh, we sent it here. And like, oh, you actually have to come to Sacramento to get it. I was like, I can't afford a pair of new shoes, like let alone like get on like a plane ride to Sacramento. And so I got my license in Wisconsin. And so like, that's now like a little memento I'll have in 10 years when I can like look back and like, those were hard times.
So you said, I heard you say we.
Yeah.
You have partners? Like, who are you doing this with?
Yeah. So my partner, Samuel Abundez, he's born and raised in Waukegan.
How'd you meet him?
Yeah, a cold call. So a cold call. So I met him over a cold call. He was just getting started. He had this list of, I don't know, whatever, these properties. I'd gotten a buyer. This buyer's ready to go. I was like, hey, like, where's it at? He can't get it because he's daisy chaining it, or buying it from another wholesaler. Hey, so we're trying to put this deal together. And one day, like, we just talked for like 3 hours. I can remember like yesterday, I'm pacing back and forth in my apartment, just like when you're head down, just on the phone, just in the zone, and we start talking, and the connection was real. I could tell he really wanted to get something started. I felt that like I had the ability to kind of put everything together, and he's an absolute workhorse. I'm super blessed to have a partner.
What were the skill sets you guys? Because I think obviously important. It's important to kind of yin and yang.
Huge. My hands and my palms were baby soft from just clacking a keyboard all day. He was a union concrete guy, so I was like, "Hey, like, what's a footing?" And he's like, and so he was like, when we first did it, he'd go through and say, "Oh, this is form foundation, stone foundation, cinder block." So him and I. He was the construction side. I was the tech system side, and we came together, and it really, like, I think we've closed 4 deals in like our first 6 or 8 months together. I think our total amount for those 4 deals was like $27,000. So
who you selling them to? Because you're not known, you don't have the end buyers. Right. Like, cool, you're hustling, you're getting them under contract.
Yeah.
How did the disposition side of the equation work for you in the early days?
So this goes back to the like skill sets translating. Uber and Ritual were both marketplace apps. So I took the same function, marketplace buyer seller. So we started a website called findoffmarketproperties.com, which I was shocked that was even available.
Yeah.
And then I started calling agents, and I was like, "Hey, do you have buyers?" And then we'd start texting them out to people, and then I started going through. If you want to get good at this quickly, learn how to run through the assessor's office, the recorder's office, and the circuit court. If you can navigate those 3 like public forums, like, you will be incredibly equipped to capture people's attention very quickly. And so we were able to, and again, it was cold calling. I mean, it was boiler room, right? It's just nonstop. And it was to the point where it's like, I remember our first big payday. I think we got like $2,000. I bought a pair of headphones because like that was like my big spend, so that I didn't have to like always pick the phone up, which is like, it seems stupid in hindsight, but it was like one of those things where it's like, we're just constantly nailing these things out. And so we like that's essentially kind of how we started building this. Today we use a tool called Investor Lift, and we built a buyers list now that it's sizable, and it's just going out and talking to people every time I'm at a seller's or a buyer's house, or I'm at an event, and people, "Oh yeah, I'm looking for real estate." Like, I'll go, "Oh great, like, what's your funding look like? What's this look like?" And I think when you engage people and they can see that you're serious about your trade, like, they look at you as a beacon of reference, right? So like, or a beacon of information. So people started calling me, "Oh, like, do you have property? Do you have property? Do you have property?" And then it just kind of started to snowball from there. But I mean, just as much of a grind on the seller side as it was on the buyer side. I mean, because when you have a good deal, or what you think is a good deal, and you have no buyers, and you're supposed to close in like 10 days, you gotta hustle. And I think a lot of people don't want to do it, but that's the difference between people who make it and people who don't. Is the ability to get in there and get it done, the desire to make it happen. Yeah. Whew.
Yeah. So that's awesome, and we've scaled that thing tremendously. But walk us through maybe the first year. So we're off the ground, You're hustling, you have some buyers, but talk to us, how do you get from that point to whatever that next step is? Like, did you start hiring employees? Did you start having systems? Like, just everyone here is looking to scale, regardless if they're wholesaling or not.
Yeah. You got to have some good stories too. Like, I imagine you move fast, man. So I imagine you got something funny.
Yeah. No, we, scaling, the thing I learned about scaling is do something that's not scalable. And once you do something that's not scalable and then it breaks, then you build a new process for it. So like, I'll give you an example. Like, we were trying to, I think buyers is like a great way. So we were trying to build our buyers list super, super quickly. And like, picking up and dialing, agents every day is not quick. So then it was reaching out to other wholesalers and saying like, "Hey, if you guys have a buyer." So like, we started integrating partnerships. So partnerships became really, really important for us. And as we developed partnerships, it got to other people who were serious buyers. So the network was one of the most important things in growing. But I think the scaling piece, we didn't focus on employees because I don't think that was that wasn't it. And I think we're also control freaks. I think in hindsight, I definitely would have brought people in. But when you're trying to build something, you want people who have the same focus and determination that you do. And there's a lot of people like Instagram realtors, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, like I got this property, and then like 2 months later, they're selling insurance or like crypto or like some like course, you know? So the first step was joining an investor-friendly brokerage. That was like mission critical because they understood what we were trying to do. And so we would hand off deals to them for, I remember like $5,000, and we'd work like dogs to get these and then hand it off for $5,000. But I mean, that was a trade-off, right? And one thing I've learned about Chicago is more than any other city is it's a very old school, you know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, like relationships go a long way. And not to say that they don't in general, but it really made an impression on me here in Chicago because it's like, hey, like I helped you out and when you needed it. And so in return, you know, we had to give them a couple of deals when we could have made more money. But yeah, like the early days scaling this and getting off the books, the first thing was systems. That was the thing that made it easy. A CRM is mission critical. So there's a ton of free ones out there. We use Salesforce now. It's great. Pipedrive is a free platform, super, super useful, super helpful, very intuitive from a user experience. Once we got that, go ahead.
How quick did you start paying for something versus just using Google
We
or Worksheet
did
or
not
Excel?
start paying for things until I think the only thing we paid for, a Gmail, a business Gmail. Get a business Gmail. It's $7 a month. Like, figure it out. If you can't figure out $7 a month, then you probably shouldn't be in the space anyway. So it's a business email and a CRM were the first things that we paid for. Then the next thing that we paid for was data. And then the next thing that we paid for was marketing. And I wouldn't change it in that order. And I think for those people who are just getting started and saying, oh, it's hard to get a hold of sellers and this, go get a hold of buyers. Like go find 5 buyers that have a very defined buy box and bring them deals. Because that's going to be the fastest way. If you don't want to go looking through, data online, you don't want to buy lists, like go find a couple of buyers who want to buy investment property, whether it's a side hustle for them or they're just looking for, they do 1 flip a year and they just want a property. Like use that to your advantage first, because as you start to turn your focus towards it, like those things start to come to you.
When you said buy data, what does that mean?
So we bought seller data. So we use a platform called Audantic. They're like a predictive analytics company that predicts if sellers are going to sell in the next 3 months. They send you, 40, 50,000 leads every quarter. And then we would take those and we were cold calling. So it was Gmail, CRM, phone system so that we could dial a lot. And then it was data that we'd plug the data in, cold call. And then every dollar we got, it was just reinvesting it back into the business. And
were you using any sort of like dialer system where it's dialing 2 or 3 at a time, or?
We were using Phone Burner. That would be if I was going to start from scratch and I was going to reach out to sellers, I would start with REI Pro or PropStream to go get seller data.
Yep.
Those two are awesome platforms. And they're
You use PropStream, don't you?
Well, now I have Deal Machine, so
Okay.
it's kind of redundant.
awesome app.
I'm in the honeymoon stage, 2 months in, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing that's ever.
Oh my goodness. Like you can move and tag.
Yeah, it's just, you can label it the way you want to label it. I don't need PropStream anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's, yeah.
And you could drive
They could
around
charge
your
me like 4x what I paid. I'm like, yeah, great.
Then
Like,
I'll take it. No, it's REI, PropStream are the ones who pull seller data. Deal Machine's great if you have spare time. Obviously, time is your most affluent currency if you're broke. And,
that's better than the way I put it.
Yeah.
I say it's your most valuable asset.
and then you can roll around and you can tag these properties. And then we did it. You can go on Fiverr. So like Fiverr and Upwork are like outsource platforms where you can go and buy cheap labor. But we just went to True People Search, and I think like we would time it out, and then I'd wait like 2 hours, and then like do another 20 searches, and then I'd wait 2 hours doing it. So it got to the point where you use those two systems, use the True People Search, and then just start ripping coldies. I think another thing too, if you are just getting into the game, like you need to have a sales process. Like process and systems have helped us scale, but they've also provided a ton of structure that makes scaling easier, right? So like if you're doing everything all at once, like you get overwhelmed. So pick your most high priority thing or the thing that sucks up the most time and figure out how to like create a process for it. And a process doesn't mean you need to get all nerdy and write it down and tweak it's like, hey, call between the hours of 2 and 4 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Like that's my call process. And then you have a sales process. What are we trying to accomplish? So I'm setting the stage with the seller. Hey, seller, this is the goal of this call. Here's a little bit about us. Tell me, there's 3 buckets it fits into. You have problem questions. What's going on? Why are you selling? You have impact questions. Why, like, how does this impact your day-to-day life? Oh, I'm a tired landlord. Oh, so like, but you're making money, right? Yeah, but I'm just tired of going out to the property. I'm tired of doing service calls. How many service calls do you do? Oh, I do. And it's just walking them through that thing that they're tired of, or the reason they want to sell. And then you have picture perfect questions, which is, all right, let's say all this, we come to an agreement. Like, what's the next step for you? What does it look like? And it also allows you to have a very conversational approach with the seller. And it doesn't feel like, give me your house, So it's like, it's a very, problem questions, impact questions, picture perfect questions. That's our sales process. It's simple. It's easy to follow.
You script that all out in your process, I imagine.
Yeah.
Like for if you have other people doing it, correct?
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, the people that work with us, we want to, like, everybody has their own style, right? Like some people are very introverted. Some people are very extroverted. So giving them the opportunity to be themselves on the phone really allows us to elevate the sale and, leverage the skills that you have as a human, as a person, as an interactor of other folk, to be able to connect with people. And I think that's is the most important thing. And then, problem solving, like point blank period. Everybody wants to get a sale. We in this on the sales floor, we'd call it commission breath. Like when you got commission breath, like it's just like me. So when we talk to sellers, it's like, hey, like what's your sitch? How can we help? Where are you at? We'll worry about price. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, but like, tell me what's going on.
Yep. Go back. What's the opening line, right? You get someone on the phone, you're calling them out of the blue. They have no idea. The odds of them hanging up on you are high. Mm-hmm. Like, what are some of those just like first, the crucial 10 seconds, some of the things that you might say just to give you the shot at the conversation?
Yeah. First thing is be assumptive. Oh, hey, Bill. Oh, hey, yeah, this is Dain over at Property Pals. How you doing? Quick question. I know this out of the blue, but do you have a property at XYZ that you'd be interested in selling? And it's either yes or no. And then if it's a yes, it's like, oh, okay. How long have you been thinking about selling it? Gotcha. Okay. How soon do you want to sell it? Oh, okay. Gotcha. And then you can kind of move into, are there tenants? Who occupies it? How long have you had it? Is there a mortgage on it? And like it becomes a little bit more fluid after that. But the thing is, hey, name, I'm Dain Laverty from Property Pals. Like I give them my full name, because you give somebody your full name, like you're not trying to hide, right? Like it's not dubious. So, being able to just be very clear in that, it's been like, buys you your next 10 seconds.
Yeah. And just to set expectations for those listening, like how many people give you the time of day on that?
How many people say yes and not no?
A lot more than I would expect. I'd say probably like 6 out of every 10 will listen to the next 10 seconds. Whether they're interested in selling or not, that's to be determined, but they will listen. Because it's just like natural as humans. Our curiosity is what drives it forward. So as long as I give them a little bit more to be curious about, and I'm direct and speak with brevity and I'm clear and concise, then it gets me into the next door. So I just kind of ride that wave.
We get these calls all the time just because we manage so many properties. And I love taking them because I was like, all right, put me on your list.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell this property, but put me on your list.
Yeah.
Like,
I see the we buy home signs. I call.
Yeah, I call them all the time too. Like, oh, your dad buys homes? Like, perfect. Put me on your list.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's like I say, it's been great. But it's establish a sales process. Don't be scared to pick up the phone and set minimums for yourself. It's like, it sounds bad. Set a minimum Because everyone's like, oh, reach for the stars. It's like, no, just put on your right foot shoe and then put on your left shoe. And once you do that, I mean, it's like when you get up in the morning, make your bed. Like it's that little thing that kind of helps. Dude, make 20 calls today. 20 calls over a month, every day. I mean, that adds up to a few hundred calls. There's law of large numbers. You're going to get one.
You started in Chicago. You're expanding outside of Chicago. Why?
So partly because we love it. But I mean, I think the other thing is like there's so much opportunity in the US. 5% of sellers are in some sort of position where they don't want to go with an agent. And so it's a huge gap to fill. And there's, tons of people that can fill it. But we saw that there's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of people to be helped. And so we picked very specific markets. We're in 14 states now across the US. And I think people look at that and they're like, oh, that's daunting. It is until you have that first conversation. We just sold a property in Steubenville, Ohio. Yeah, you're like, okay, where is that? It's on the border of Pennsylvania. I don't know.
Sounds like where some NFL draft pick would come from.
Some
middle linebacker out of Steubenville.
Yeah, exactly. On like the plaque in Canton, it says from Steubenville.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I remember we got it under contract for like $2,000 and we sold it, I think, for $9,000. And we were calling agents in the area. Hey, would you take this? Do you have any buyers for this? It's the same as here. They're geographically different. So it's a mental block to say that you can't do something outside of your area. And sellers are so willing to send you photos. Like, what does Michael Scott say? 100% of the shots you don't take, you miss.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
Michael Scott.
You're wearing your Dunder. I would have worn. He's got his Dunder Mifflin shirt on. I would have worn my Michael Scott Paper Company shirt.
For sure. But yeah, it's just something that you just got to ask for stuff, right? Closed mouths don't get fed. So when you ask for things, the worst that's going to happen is you say no. So for anybody who's like, oh, I don't want to do it, it's either you really don't want to do it or you're just scared. And I think it's just like sitting down. The discipline is huge in this.
Yeah. So talk to us a little about when you go into other states now, like, are you still dialing? Do you have a team of VAs dialing? Like, how have you figured out?
Yeah.
There's only so much time, right? Like, how have you
Sure.
figured that piece of the puzzle?
Sure. So I think now that we're like talking about it, we did hire a VA when we first started to make dials, but then I was like, no, that's when I got back on the phone and going back to like do what's not scalable. I knew that, our first $100,000, Sam and I had to get in the mud and make that call. So then we established the sales process. Now we have a team and they run the sales process, the problem, impact, picture perfect. And they will take the calls. I mean, we're really fortunate now everything's inbound, which is great, but they will take those calls and, people want to sell. So, hey, we like to hire solar people, like people from solar. Awesome. People from agents, I might piss off some agents, but I think a lot of agents are so like brainwashed by like, this is what an agent should do, that like they don't think about like all of these other options that you have as a realtor and the access that you have like to the tools in the MLS. Like they're incredible. Like you have a leg up. And so we look for agents that work with investors that understand the lingo, right? Like 50% of this is just understanding the lingo, right? I mean, between net operating income, ARVs, settlement state, like what? So when you get somebody who kind of understands that already, it's super helpful. Solar, we like solar because solar wildly complex. So if you can talk to somebody who can distill it down to something simple, you're like, okay, got it. You have that gift for gab. So that's what we're looking for with those folks. So when they talk to these people nationwide, they're just starting conversations.
That's awesome. So let's stay along the lines of some lingo here. Sub 2.
Sub 2.
So your personal deals that you've kept, you've done a lot of sub 2.
Love it.
It's hot right now because things are expensive. Yeah. You hear a lot of it on YouTube, or this is how you can do things with low money, no money. First off, define it for our listeners, and then let's dive into the process.
Subject to is purchasing a property subject to the existing mortgage, right?
Okay. And so what does that mean?
Yep. So you have the deed, which is the ownership or to the property. And then you have the title, and the title has everything that's associated with the property: liens, mortgages, judgments, and a list of other things. So when you're buying a property subject to, the deed, the ownership is transferring over to the buyer, and you're buying it subject to what's on the title. So it may be subject to taxes, it may be subject to a mortgage, but basically what you're saying is like, I'm buying this house with this attached. So subject to means with this attached.
Yeah, I am taking on all those liabilities. If there's a contractor's lien for 20 G's, I'm taking it on.
Yeah.
Your mortgage payment of X, I'm taking it on.
Right. Yeah. Run that J&L search, judgment and lien search, if you're going to buy on a quitclaim deed. But the subject to is a super, it's a super easy way to acquire property quickly, but you have to be careful for a number, like you just said. Like if you buy a property subject to and you take it on a quitclaim deed, and the seller goes out and hits somebody with their car and then gets sued, and then that shows up on title, and then that awesome sub 2 deal that you just bought is now clouded by a $50,000 lawsuit. Like, you don't have a deal anymore. You just have, a property that you're paying.
Stupidville, Ohio.
Yeah.
What's the end game with sub 2? Like, is you're going to refinance out? Like, what's the?
Yeah.
But you never you never officially take ownership.
No,
right?
you do.
You do.
So with sub 2, sub 2 and seller finance are two different things. So seller finance is when a property is owned free and clear, and the seller is the bank, and they essentially there's a mortgage written saying that you're going to pay them over X amount of time, X amount of dollars. And at the end of that term, you get the deed. Subject to, you get the deed right out of the gate, and you make the payments for the seller, but the mortgage stays in the seller's name.
Are you?
So this is real quick. One of the reasons this is, just to make sure I'm on the same page, one of the reasons this is hot right now is you might have someone who's in a situation, but they also have that 3% mortgage.
Woo.
Right. And all of a sudden, we can keep those payments in line instead of you having to go buy the property and get a rate at 7 or whatever that's going at today.
100%. And in terms of end game, when you're looking to buy subject to, like, there needs to be multiple exit strategies, because if you only have one exit strategy in a sub 2, and God forbid something happens, like, and you can't sell it because there's no equity, and now you're just making payments, or you don't make payments and now the seller falls back into foreclosure, like, that's not a good situation to be in. So when you're purchasing sub 2, you need to know, okay, I can fix this up and flip out of it. I can fix it up and refinance. I can fix it up and rent. I fix up and rent. And so I like that, because you buy sub 2 for the cash flow, right? Like the cash, there's a little arbitrage that's available right now for people who are looking to do sub 2. If you go and look on the Illinois Foreclosure Listing Service, it's a website that shows all of the foreclosures in Illinois. This is like super secret sauce. This is
lean in, whisper it.
This is juicy.
Whisper it.
Yeah. Filing date. So you get in there and you set the filter for filing date, like within the last 30 days. And then you go to Section 8, fair market values. Section 8 just increased their fair market values considerably.
Yeah.
So then you look in areas where, they're paying $2,000 plus for a 3-bedroom. And then you just take that zip code, you plug it into Ilphalis with the filing date of last month, pull that list of people and start calling them. Because now you have a mortgage that's low. I mean, granted, they're in foreclosure, so you probably got to bring them out of it depending on how much is owed. If you are going to buy something that's in foreclosure, you need to order a reinstatement quote and a payoff letter. A reinstatement quote says, hey, this is how much you need to pay to bring escrow current and to bring the mortgage current. And the payoff letter says, this is how much is still due on the mortgage. So
yeah, real quick, I just want to hit on that, because if you're just looking on the county site, like, oh, this mortgage was $470 2 years ago, so it should be at $450 right now. That number might be 5, right? With the fees and everything. Like, it might be a silly number above the original balance based on all the fee, everything that they tack on at the end. So don't get blindsided there.
Absolutely. And then this isn't particular to sub 2, but like prorations will murder you, because we're building arrears here, right? So like, if you don't watch your prorations, we just lost a deal, I think in like Elmhurst or something like that, and the prorations were like 13 grand, and then the seller wanted 5,000. I don't know, it was a mess, but just be careful about that type of stuff is when you're looking at deals like this that are in foreclosure. But yeah, the foreclosure, you can arbitrage these really low interest rates. You go in there, you see, it'll tell you on ILFLIS, Illinois Foreclosure Listing Service, it'll tell you the interest rate that they have, whether it's conventional, whether it's FHA. And then you can go to the county recorders, you can look at the actual mortgage, and you can see like, is it assumable? We don't assume them, but like you can see if it's assumable, you can see how long it is. You can see the interest rate. And then you can run an amortization table based on how much is left. So you kind of have an idea of like what the monthly payment would be. And then, ask them for a monthly statement. But like that, we haven't gone into that, but like I've looked at that. There's so much money to be made in that. Like, I don't know, if you had an extra, you go and go raise some private capital, got $100,000 and just went and bought sub 2. Like you could spin up probably $10,000 to $12,000 in cash flow a month, like fairly quickly. First of all, let me preface that. I just made it sound way easier than it really is. Like that's not easy to do. But if you know what to look for and you know how to structure those things, then just, like buckle down. Like 90% of the fun of this is just doing it, right? Like the paydays aren't bad either. But
as a side note, I saw Realtor.com has a search toggle to search assumable loans now as well too.
Yeah,
I saw that commercial yesterday.
What is it? Columbia, or I don't know, one of the Ivy Leagues is teaching sub 2 and seller finance now as part of their real estate course.
Nice.
Well, what about? So to me, my risk I hear is, I'm pulling a guy out of foreclosure. Mm-hmm. What if I'm paying him and he just stops paying again? Like, are you paying the lender directly? How do you protect yourself, I guess?
Yeah. So we pay the lender directly. So when we set up, we get all of the login information. Like it's like Wells Fargo or Shell Point or whoever. We'll get the login credentials. We'll go in there. We'll change all the login credentials to ours. And then we set a notification, like a text notification to the seller, letting the seller know that we've paid.
Because their credit's still at risk too. So you have to have some.
But the pitch to them is like, you're already in the hole, right? Like, we'll actually bring you out of the hole, make the payments on time, and like help your credit. The other way to do it is to hire a servicer. A servicer, hey servicer, I want you to make these payments. They send out notifications to all parties that payments have been made. That's another way to do it.
Is that expensive?
I've never done the servicer route, but I imagine it's probably like 1.5% of.
So somebody like using a credit card.
Yeah.
Fee.
Yeah.
What about due on sale clauses? How does that? I've heard in the past that's something that is a risk, I guess.
Yeah, it is. Like I don't think there's like a way to sugarcoat it. It is a risk. Make your payments on time. I think that's part of it.
Well, due on sale clause. Let me, if anything, define that first for people.
Yeah, due on sale clause is when the lender says, "Gotcha, I'm going to need all that money right now." So they call the loan due. They say, "Hey, you have to pay in full right now," and you have to pay them. So you either have to sell the property or refinance out. The guy I learned from Alan, he's been doing this 40 years. It's never happened to him. I know it's big in like the Pace Morby community. I know it's not something that happens often, but like it's a risk. Like you're getting into a property where the barrier of entry is so low. Like it is going to, I think, come with some inherent risk. So you do have to be smart about it and what you're buying, how you're buying it.
But if you get a due on sale, then your options basically are just
sell,
figure out the money, or get that money real fast, even if it's hard, then figure out a plan, or just straight out sell.
Or just call up your attorney and say, "Hey, I need you to kick this case down the road."
Buy me 90 days.
Yeah. Third option, buy time. Okay.
Yeah. $600 to your attorney would be a lot less expensive than $200,000.
So you're talking
this
about
is also just call Renovo, right? Like not to give them a pitch, but they'll get you out.
When you talk about exit strategies, then that's one of the reasons you want to make sure you have exit strategies is a scenario like that where you have a 30-day type. Like I got to figure something out.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like I think a lot of people look at real estate as something that's super sexy, and it is, but it's you can lose your ass so fast. And it has legal implications. Like, I think like the majority of people that go to jail for real estate don't even know they did something wrong. Right. Like, and shame on the attorneys, but like, it's, you do have to be careful. Always ask your title company, always ask your attorney, double and triple check. whenever I send an email, I read it 3 times just to make sure that there's no type. Like it's just being thorough about it. If you and if you're too lazy to be thorough, then like be prepared to suffer consequences should they come.
It's good stuff. All right, so the stuff you've obtained, you've done subject to multiple times here. I don't want to beat the dead horse, but how does that conversation get brought up with the buyer? Because the average American doesn't understand this at all. Like the average person listening to the show right now is probably like, oh, I've never actually gone this deep into it.
Yeah.
So how does just that initial convo go of like, oh, don't worry, we'll take over the mortgage for you, right? Like that's
I gotta just give you a login.
Give me your social.
Yeah. Like
No. So okay. So I think one of the things that allows us to move quickly and build a lot of credibility is we have 5 different ways to purchase property. We can give you a cash offer or cash out. Everything's a program. Give you a cash out offer. It's a cash out program. We can buy at sub 2, which is your mortgage saver program. We can do a novation, which is our equity protection program. You have seller finance and you have like a retail regular listing. So how we get into the sub 2 piece is when somebody goes to sell and the house is like on the verge of being underwater based like from its condition. They don't necessarily have to owe a lot to be underwater. I mean, the house could be trashed. And if it's trashed and you owe $100,000 and it's only worth 50, you're underwater. So we'll look at the first thing we say is, hey, do you have a mortgage on the property? Yeah, I do have a mortgage. Got it. How long have you had the mortgage in place? Oh, we've had the mortgage in place for 4 years, 7 years, 10 years. Okay. I can't make you a cash offer based on the condition of the house, but I do have one other program that I think you might qualify for. And that is our mortgage saver program. How this works is we will make the payments for you. The mortgage will stay in your name, but we'll make the payments. And this is the super, super important part. And also I think, which is the ethical thing to do, is we put a quitclaim deed that's been fully executed into an escrow account with the title company that says if we stop making payments, that will trigger and you'll get the property back.
That's how they're protected.
That's how you're protected, right? Like I don't want you. There's a woman that we worked with in Ohio. I don't know. Like she seemed really rich, but super highly educated. Like I think they were fairly well off, but they had a problem where they're out of state. They had property with tenants that were squatting, and she's like, I have perfect credit. Like I can't risk doing this. And so we did the whole thing, put the escrow agreement, put the quitclaim in an escrow, held by her attorney, and it was fully executed. So if something happens, it goes straight back to her, and we make the payments every month. I'm still hitting her up for a Google review. She's like, you're still making payments. So once you're out of this, then I'll write the review. I said, okay, fine. So so we give them that security with the quitclaim, and then we tell them, hey, we'll send you notifications. But people are like, well, why would they do that? I stopped asking sellers why they might do something and just started offering them solutions to get out of whatever situation they're in. And sometimes that's just like, I can't make another $1,200 payment every month. I have a $700 car note. I got 2 kids in college. I got bills coming up the wazoo. Eggs are $5 a dozen. Like I need a break. And so sometimes just like that little, taking that $1,200 off their plate is huge. And again, all of this goes to a title company. All of this goes to attorneys.
And you can do it real quick too, probably.
And we can do it real quick. We can close on a sub 2 deal as fast as it takes to close title. So 3, 5, 7 days.
For the first 5 years, I was a real estate agent. I thought it was quick claim.
Yeah.
For the first 5 years.
Yeah. No.
I remember saying it, and someone's like, "What'd you say?" I said, "No, quick claim." Like I was totally like confident in what I was saying.
Yeah.
No, quick claim.
I think that's probably pretty common though. I think the T kind of just rolls a little bit, too soft. But yeah, the sub 2 is definitely, it's a huge. It's helped me again. 2019, no money, no nothing. 2024, we now own upwards of 15, 20 doors, something like that. 10 of those are personal. Another 10 are with the company. And a lot of this has been done through sub 2. And so, and the rates are great. I got like 2.25 or something like that. And it also allows us now that we fix them up, we can cash out refinance on those, pull out the debt, spend the debt, not get taxed, and buy another sub 2. So again, absolute godsend, but do your homework. Absolutely do your homework. If you don't do your homework and you get burned, that's your fault.
Yeah, there's a lot of potential downside there, right?
Yeah.
Like with everything on title. So, all right, what I'll take on Chicago. I know you're starting to go to other markets. You live in Logan here. You staying here? Are you doubling down here? Are you starting to retreat to other places? Where?
Yeah, we will go harder and harder on selling nationwide. All of our leads come through Google. If you can't afford or don't know how to run a Google campaign, there are plenty of companies out there. Nurture Boosts is one. You can pay for leads. They're like $200 or $250 a lead, and then you can get leads that way. And these are ones that have been pre-qualified. If you can't get a hold of them, or it's not if it's, you can refund that lead. So they're not here trying to gouge people who are trying to get started. So that's one way to do it. But I see there being a really bright future in going nationwide. That being said, love Chicago. The value, if you did not buy a home prior to the pandemic, like that ship has sailed in terms of affordability. Housing prices in Chicago are continuing to go up. I mean, we just sold a house in Inglewood that needed a considerable amount of work for like 80 grand. Yeah.
Used to be able to get for $8,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Chicago has a lot, regardless of the politics that are going on in Chicago, it's always going to be a city people want to come to. It's one of the cleanest cities in the world, and I've been quite a few places. And the suburbs, people love the suburbs in terms of investing in single-family homes. A lot of single-family home investors want to buy in the suburbs. The city of Chicago, you're going to get high profitability in the city of Chicago. So, the amount of money that you put in and how quickly it takes for you to get that money back, call it cash on cash return, is very generous here in Chicago. So, we'll continue to shop here. If you know how to operate in Chicago, it's an incredibly beautiful market.
Is there space for up and coming Danes to get into the market still?
I would love to see up and coming Danes. Like, I'll be honest, like I look at the guys over at Kendall Partners, and
episode. I'm not sure which episode.
I have never notes in front of us. We're live.
Shout out to Jeff and his team. But I would like to build something similar to what they've built. And as we continue to get our feet under us, I'm sure there's people that come in and say, "Hey, I want to get where they want to be." So I think also just being a resource for people. I never will close my door on anybody that's genuinely curious that wants to learn. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'm available. I'll make myself available. But yeah, I think that there's a ton of room for people to continue to do this. But I also want to note, there's not room for people who are just like these fly by night, get rich quick, like take advantage of people. Like, I can't stand stuff like this, because when we talk to people who get taken all the time, and it gives the people who are out here, really building businesses around this, it gives us it's an uphill battle. So yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to get into this, like, be prepared to roll up your sleeves and just it is a grind. I'm 36 years old. I'll be 37 or 37 years old. I'll be 38 this year, and I am working incredibly hard every day. But my wife, her fiance soon to be, told me, "Hey, be home at 5." And I was like, "Well, then I got to get in early."
There you go.
So just be prepared to work hard. But yeah, there's tons of room.
Well, and one of the things you said that really resonated well earlier was, there's 5% of the people that fit this bucket.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part. Someone goes out and buys a wholesaler, and they just, whether it's right for the for the person they're talking to, they're trying to jam it down their throat.
Yeah.
Right. They are trying to, that person might just be uneducated, and then they get taken advantage of, realizing that, all right, I'm servicing this small niche here, right? As opposed to like the one size fits all, and like, I'm going to jam this product on everyone's throat. Yeah. And some people might, quote unquote, fall for it. Like that's where it becomes like, that's highly unethical, and that's like just garbage.
Yeah. And then shame on you. You should go to jail. You should pay the repercussions. Because again, the people who are selling their homes are in some sort of stress. Like, granted, they made decisions to get there, but like, they're looking for a way out, so like, let's be the bridge between getting people out of these situations and let them get on with their lives. And in return, we're able to make a living in that, that little in between. But yeah, I'm again, like one of the core values of the company is being ethical, like communication oriented, is another one. So like I'm huge on communication. I don't care if the news is good, bad, ugly, I'll tell you. And I think being upfront and getting ahead of the ball, like that will cut so many headaches out. Because there's times when you're like, oh, I can't sell it. I'm gonna have to go back and ask for a price reduction. I'm gonna do that. Hey, listen, seller, this is what's going on. I'm gonna give you two options. We can either pull out of this, or we may need to do a price reduction. We don't really do them, but this is a hard conversation to have. Hey, we need to do a price reduction. Are you open to this? I don't want to continue to waste your time. Hey, I'm out. And it's no harm, no foul. Whereas if you're waiting and you ask for an extension, then you ask for another extension, and now you can't perform on something and you've just wasted 2 months and on some hopeful.
And 2 months they might really need. Like they might have some shot clock there that you put them in a bad spot.
Yeah. And so, like I said, you gotta, the more you can communicate, the better you'll become at it, the further you'll get. And I get probably 2 calls a week from people who are referring business in now. It's like, hey, like I like the way you took care of me. Hey, I know you know what you're doing. And they'll refer business our way, like nonstop. And so that's how the fastest way to build up your referral business is to be wildly effective at communicating. Like just point blank period. Again, good news, bad news, it doesn't matter. You got to deliver it.
Yep.
All right. You wrap on that? That was pretty good.
That was good. Let's wrap.
All right. Awesome. What's your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do all this in just a short time while others wish they could?
Yeah. Providing optionality. It's not one size fits all. We have 5 different programs. If you're serious about selling, then you'll sell one of those buckets. Or you don't like us and you won't.
There you go. All right. What is one piece of advice you would tell someone who's yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Keep looking. Keep looking. There is so much opportunity out there right now, regardless of what the news says, regardless of what realtors say who do this part-time. There is opportunity left and right. Find something you like, then figure out how to buy it.
Love it. What do you do for fun?
Swim. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big swimmer. It's so therapeutic. When I was on the coast, I'd go surfing. Somebody asked me to go up in Wisconsin, and no, it's just a little too cold, but yeah.
All right. What's a good book, podcast, or self-development activity you'd recommend to our listeners?
Number one podcast I'm listening to right now is the Straight Up Chicago Investors podcast. And then
I feel like when we're in person, we get the answer a lot more. People don't they're staring at us like, all right, I got to say this.
Another one I love is the All In podcast with Chamath Palihapitiya, David Sachs. Those guys just talk about so much, and they're connected. Like they don't feel disconnected from reality. They're amazing. And then in terms of books, I'm a big fiction guy, but if I was going to choose a business book, it would probably be Go Giver.
All right, very good.
Nice. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend to other investors as a quality resource.
Frank Montrow Homes. He has been incredibly generous with his time and is just a wealth of knowledge. And yeah, he's absolutely go to him, whether you have experience or not.
Yeah, Frank and his team helped us out a lot in the early on the south side and do it flips and all that stuff and what to do. So like, I agree. He's a go-giver himself.
Yeah, he does live it, and his energy is so high. I'm high D. So shout out Frank. But yeah, Frank's been incredible. Has presented opportunities, and he also creates opportunities, which I think is like something that not a lot of people either know how to do or don't do. But he does a great job creating opportunities, and in that, relationships spawn.
That's awesome. So we'll do Frank Montrow episode, and we'll edit it in. The overdub, like 86.
Nice.
All right. Dave, thanks so much. You provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
If you want to reach out to me, REI Dainer on Instagram is my Instagram handle. And you can give me a call at 630-534-5. Oh, so here's my cell. 415. Yeah, 415-590-1062. Feel free to reach out with any questions you guys have.
We'll put that in the show notes too.
All right. Chicago fact. Got to pull up the old notes here. You have to use the notes on the wrap-up questions?
I still do.
That's embarrassing. This is like episode 290. There's 3 questions. One of them is, what do you do for fun?
That's awesome.
Man, I deserve that. I'm not even gonna fight.
I saw you reading. I was like, what are you doing? Pay attention. Oh my God, he's reading.
Yes, yeah.
I was a mess a couple weeks ago when I recorded the one by myself. Like, so that's I had 2 other
Oh, you
questions.
do mine?
Yeah, do your questions too.
Progress.
All right, today we're gonna. Today's sponsor is Josh Stegelman from State Farm Insurance. If you need, builders risk, or if you need regular insurance, State Farm's got pretty competitive rates right now. And we're playing. If we get this right, we're playing. Brent Daniels is the one we pulled out of the hat, and Brent. I feel like he's played before, but Brent. If we get this right, you get $50 gift card brought to you by Josh Stegelman and State Farm.
One quick thing in the State Farm too. I think I've mentioned it before, but if you do like the full rehabs like we do, the back end, it's like a 35% discount. It's a huge discount if you take care of all the mechanicals and the systems. And you got to go through an inspection now. They just updated the underwriting, but still, like, it's a huge number. So they fit that niche real well. All right. So I was driving out to Roselle, and I figured I'd get a Roselle question. So
All right.
So Glenn Klotch. So you probably don't know who this is, but he's a Roselle native. He just contributed 10 songs on the recent Taylor Swift album. He played drums on 10 of the songs, which is probably what he's going to be known for now because she is such a big deal. But he's the drummer of this Chicago-based band. And your options are Styx, Wilco, Rise Against, or Chicago.
Yeah, that's what I would have said. I feel like the other options are too old. Rise Against.
Wilco, it is. Nice
All
work,
right,
guys.
I would have said that, yeah. Sticks and like those guys, they're all like more dead.
No, but I figured, but like the studio, what I thought where it might get you is like the studio drummer now. Like that's the back life.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Because he was on the T Swift. Like that's where I thought it might get you.
Those
there.
other ones are just also like so big. It feels like I don't know. You'd know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I gave you 2 recent. Rise Against is new. Like
Yeah,
Rise Against
they're
and
new.
Wilco. Like
Yeah,
I gave you 2 old and 2 new.
Oh,
Yeah.
Rise Against. I was thinking Rage Against the Machines.
No, they're not from here.
Yeah, okay.
All right, awesome. Well, man, Dain, awesome. Appreciate having you out here. Tom, thanks as always. Listeners, check out, if you leave us a 5-star review, we're not asking for 4 or 3, we're asking for a 5-star review on iTunes. And Dain, we're going to hit you up for 1 as well, too.
Absolutely.
We'll enter you in for the Chicago Facts contest. So go on strapchicagoinvestor.com or iTunes, and you could click through to leave that review. But Dain, thank you. Tom, thank you as always. And listeners, we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks all.